Marketing Your Private Practice is a podcast where you'll learn easy to implement tips and strategies to grow your business without spending all day online. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and I teach practitioners the Thrive marketing method to create simple and streamlined plans by focusing on long-term strategies, not just social media. Discover ways to spend less time on your marketing, attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. Hey there, private practice heroes. Thanks for tuning into the podcast today. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and this is part 2 of our conversation on why saying no to clients who are not a fit can be the key to booking more of your dream clients. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, episode 144, which is all about if you want more dream clients, you need to start saying no to the wrong ones, then make sure you do that first. And I will have a link to it in the show notes. Now, in that episode, I shared a story about an email I got from someone looking to book a consult. And they wanted to know if we were a fit to work together before they made the decision to work with me. And the 52 words in that one email made it clear to me very instantly that it was a hard no. It's one of those real moments in business that stand out as a message to remind you that our values are worth protecting. And that's what happened to me and what I shared on that episode. Today, what I'm going to do is walk you through the practical side of saying no to potential clients, and in particular, the ones who are not a good fit. And I'm going to share with you 8 specific steps that will help you really learn and understand how to define who is and who isn't a good fit, how you can protect your time and energy, and how you can respond with clarity, even when it might be a tough situation. And I will be saying and sharing the exact response I sent to the person from that episode from last week. So that way you'll have a script of sorts that you can borrow if you need it. And word for word, I will tell you how I replied. And in such a way that we parted knowing that it was the best decision for each of us. As a reminder, I do want to share with you what prompted all of this. So I'm going to share the words that I did get in that email where I absolutely knew that this person would not be a fit to work with me and that there was no way we would continue on and I wasn't even going to book a consult. So what had happened, for those of you who are probably not going to jump back and listen to that episode, is I was replying to an email and offering to book a consult, sent that out. And about 5 minutes later, another email came back from that same person. And this one was a reply to one of the automated emails from my lead magnet that they had signed up for. And to be honest, I didn't even need to read all 52 words in the email to know it was a hard no. And the words that they had put in the email were this: Kathy, you seem like a nice person and a Canadian like me. And I was considering working with you, but what's with this shit? And then they had a screenshot of my email signature from my lead magnet campaign of emails. And the signature had my pronouns, she, her, highlighted in yellow. So the email continued. It's just a personal preference, but if this is where you stand on social compliance, I'm not sure I can proceed. You're welcome to change my mind. Thanks. So yeah, this was someone I definitely said no to, and I would not have gone any further. There was no consult that was ever going to happen. And so I did reply back to them because I knew that there was no way, based on my values and my beliefs and what I stand for in my business, that I could work with someone who had that opinion and would send an email like that. So I definitely said no. And this is something that many practice and business owners are often scared to do, telling someone no, a potential client. No, I don't want to work with you. Now, we don't often say it like that, but deep down, that is what we all mean. I do not want to work with you. A lot of practice owners and business owners will avoid this, though, and they will end up working with people who are not an ideal fit because they fear they're losing out by saying no, losing out on income, losing out on opportunity, all sorts of things. But honestly, the reality is you lose a lot more by saying yes in those situations. Saying no creates space for lots of things. It creates space for the right people, the dream clients who really light you up when you work with them. It makes space for more trust with your clients. It makes space for having a practice or a business that is led by your values. And more importantly, I like to say, it gives you space for you to thrive. Saying no sends a message to your business. It says, this is the kind of space I'm creating. Saying no to someone also tells your future clients, I'm doing this work with intention. Saying no tells you also that you're trusting in yourself to decide who belongs on your client list and in your space working with you. But it's hard to say no, especially for those that might be new or struggling to have a steady stream of income. You're always thinking, well, if I say no, I'm going to lose out on income. And you're worried about everything that could go wrong instead of thinking what could happen if you actually let that person go or never worked with them in the first place and made space for more of other things. One of the ways that you actually start making that shift towards booking more of those dream clients, people that are more aligned with you, more aligned with your values and your beliefs, and typically you're going to align with theirs as well. The way that you get to a place where you start booking more of these clients is by learning how to say no when that is actually the best decision to make in the moment. You make sure that those people who reach out to you who are not a good fit are not blocking your efforts to bring the right people into your practice or your business. And the only way you do that is by saying no so that you have the space to move forward and book more of those ideal clients, the people you love to work with, the people whose lives are impacted by what you do when you work together with them. And that impact, if you're working with someone who isn't a great fit, isn't always going to be as impactful. I mean, impact is impactful. But when you think about what you're doing with a client and how you work with them, if you're not really aligned, you're probably not going to be doing your best work. But when you love working with someone, that is when everything fits together so nicely for you and the client. So what I want to do today is share with you some steps on how you can attract more of those dream clients. Part of it is going to be about saying no, and part of it is going to be about knowing and understanding what it is and how you can make sure that you avoid those situations where you're saying yes to people you really don't want to. So the first thing that you really need to do, and if you haven't done this, it's one of the basics in running a business or a practice and having a business plan, is defining your right fit client. And it's a little bit more than picking your ideal client and creating that ideal client profile. You want to make sure that as you're putting that together, that you know some things, and it's going to take sometimes a bit of research, but you want to know who you do your best work with. You have to think about the dream clients you have worked with. Think about their mindset, their values, and the goals they bring to the work. And you have to decide if this matters to your work. And if it does, then you need to lead with that value and that mindset of who that right client is when you're doing consults with prospective clients. And by the way, this might also extend to your team, having that right fit. I remember for me, when I started working more exclusively with clients, and in particular dietitians and nutritionists in the eating disorder space, and a lot of those clients are very vocal about their values. They're also very vocal about who they work with and who they don't work with. And that aligns with me totally. But I did have to make some changes in my processes when I was hiring team members. And right or wrong, politically correct or not, it's my business, so I can do what I want to in my hiring process. I get to call the shots. That's part of being in business. But after I started working with more clients like this, I did start including in my hiring process a very frank talk about my clients and their work. And I would let potential team members know that I work with a lot of practitioners who create content that will focus on or around the topics of eating disorder, body positivity, inclusivity. I shared with them that my clients also work with their own clients, many of whom are from the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, BIPOC communities. And that's where some of my clients are from as well. And I talk about the fact that their marketing and the work that we do with them will exude a lot of content that speaks to their ideal clients. They might be having to create content or work with content that includes a lot of diverse images, content that might speak out about anti-racism issues, transgender issues, underserved communities. There might be content in there that says the word fat in a way that a lot of people might not be used to it. And so I would talk to them about that. And I would be very clear with them that if this is going to be an issue for you, that's okay by me, but it can affect your work. And if it's going to, and if you're going to have a problem with it, then we're not a fit for you to be a member on my team. So when we talk about saying, being okay to say no to people, it's not always just clients, but for me, it was also my team members as well. So defining the right fit is going to be really key in making sure that you're being aware of who you're going to work with and who you're not, and sticking to your gut on working with the people who are a right fit. Second thing that you want to do is name your deal breakers. For me, any form of disrespect or lack of inclusivity and acceptance is a hard no. That's why that email for me was like, no, this is not going to happen. So you want to have a short list or be aware of or have in your head some of those red flags for you. And you may find that sometimes that red flag will not pop up until the situation happens. So it may be that you never really thought about a red flag that might come up along the way. And when it does, then all of a sudden it's going to go on your list of deal breakers. So the other thing that you want to think about is how you position that and how you say it, because it can be a challenge sometimes to share what your deal breaker might be. And you may not have to do that. For me, the response that I gave to this particular person was very clear that we would not be moving forward. I was still very polite about it, and I didn't go into any long, convoluted conversations. It was just very simply, no, sorry if that's how you feel. Then we're not a fit to work together. And again, I'm going to share that as we go through this lesson here, the exact words that I used. Part of it for me is I always visualize in my head my family members, my friends, other clients. And if one of my red flags comes up and I think about how that would affect somebody in my family, then that is one of the things that makes me sit there and to be honest, what happens is I visualize them smiling at my small action when I do it, because I know that I'm also supporting them by saying no in certain situations like this. So for me, saying no always feels good, especially in a case like the one that had happened in the story that we're talking about here today. A third step that you can do is look at adding pre-screening questions. Now, this could be questions that might be on an intake form, a consult form that you might have. It might be something where you get people to fill out. It may be questions you ask to people face to face. So in my previous life as a virtual assistant, one of the questions that I would ask the potential client that I was looking to work with would be, what kind of hours do you work in your business, and what is your turnaround time on work and expectations? Because if they were going to be a weekend warrior and work all weekend for them, that was great. But if they expected me to do the same, that would be no, we're not a good fit to work together. So sometimes asking a few questions can be something that helps you weed out people that may be crossing or bringing up one of those red flag areas that is one of your deal breakers. So asking some questions may bring that about. And I always like to have them written down because I like to make sure that I'm not forgetting them, and that in the moment when we're having a consult and talking to people, that I remember the important things that I want to ask during those sessions. The fourth thing that can help in a case like this is pause before you say yes. And I always like to think about giving yourself 24 hours to think about when you have one of those situations where you're not quite sure what you want to do. Maybe you need a little bit of time to check in with your gut. And I always look back to the time when my son Marshall played a lot of hockey, and I volunteered as a team manager. And I was often the go-between between the parents and the coach. So during that time, we had this 24-hour cool off rule. And let me tell you, that rule can help with more than just hockey parents and coaches. And I always like to think that if I have something happening and it's going to be a struggle to decide which way to go, and I'm not quite sure, and my instinct is going to be to jump in and dive at it and maybe react in a way that I don't want to, I always think about the 24-hour cool off rule and give myself a break before I make a decision, yes or no. Now, this time, this story that we're talking about here was not one of those instances where I took that pause in the 24 hours because it was a deal breaker for me. The hard no's rarely are ones that are going to be ones that you might have to wait for and think on and reflect on, where a pause can help. Sometimes when you are very clear about what your boundaries are and your deal breakers and you know what's going to be a hard no or not, then it's a lot easier to say that no right away, immediately, gets it done, gets it over with, and you can move on. And I will say that as time goes by, and if you have to start saying no to people, it does get a little bit easier too. And I find the need to have to pause and think about things doesn't come up as often as it did before I really had that clear thought on, what is a deal breaker for me? Where are we not going to be a fit? And what are some of the hard no answers for me? And in that case, then I truly go ahead and just deal with it and don't take the pause. But as you build up your confidence in saying no to working with clients, you may need to work on those, have that break and that pause to help you get through it with the proper answer that you're looking for. The fifth thing that you can do is script your no. Having a email template or a script ready to go that might be kind with a firm response to people so that you're not writing or talking from a reactive place can often help. Again, as I say, I'm not always great in the moment and I'm not always a quick thinker on my feet. So for me, I like to have scripts for a lot of things like this because I want to make sure that I am able, especially when a situation is tricky or it might be emotionally charged, that I'm able to give a good answer. Because when questions catch me off guard, I can get really awkward and stumble with everything in the moment. I mean, it's just a bad situation altogether for me. Anxiety jumps back up in these situations. And in those moments, I just do not do as well. And then afterwards, I have the regret and all these different thoughts. So what I do is I have what I call it my no document. And what I do is I have some samples of how I will say no to people or what kinds of things that I would write in an email to somebody if I'm saying no that way. And that way I have words at the ready. And sometimes, honestly, I just find the act of writing it down helps me remember how to address it the next time. But more importantly, because I have it saved in a document, then I can find it if I need it to have it there as well. The other thing that I did in a situation like this is I started another running list that I call my value questions document. And in there, I save responses to questions that can be very challenging for me to answer, especially ones that are tied to my core values and my advocacy. And so having these documents that have prepared answers is something that just helps me feel more grounded and prepared and confident when I do need to speak up or hold a boundary. So having something that gives you some samples of what you've said before or what you want to say the next time somebody asks you a question that you weren't sure of today, then you'll be prepared for it tomorrow. So scripting your no responses can be very helpful in a situation like this. And one thing that I always remember that one of my business coaches taught me for many, many years is you don't have to explain yourself. And this is where that no is a complete sentence mantra that my friend Tracy taught me comes into play here. When you're saying no, you don't always have to go into the reasons why, and it could be this or that. Often what happens is if you don't stick to a firm no, you give people an opportunity to convince you otherwise. So if you really want to stay to that hard no, you have to be prepared for it. Don't go in and try to bring in all sorts of supporting reasons why you're saying this or other things and just trying to back up and and really explain your no. You don't have to explain it to anybody, especially when you own your own business. You're the CEO. You can call the shots on who you work with, how you work with them, when you work with them. It's all up to you. And you don't have to account to anybody why you don't want to work with someone. So just remember that as well. Scripting the no can be very helpful, especially giving you that confidence that you might need in those moments where it could be challenging to stay confident in what you're doing. The sixth thing that you can do here is check in with your values. So this is something that you also may need to sit there in the moment and just ask yourself, does this person really align with the way that I want to work and the way I want to show up in the world? And do they fit what I stand for? And will I have challenges working with them? And if you have an immediate negative response when you're asking yourself these kinds of questions, I want you to think about what could happen and what dealing with that could do to your balance when it comes to your business and your life. We carry a lot of negative crap outside of our business too. So one of the big questions that is important, I think, when you're making this check-in here is, will moving forward with a yes to this person end up meaning that you're carrying a storm cloud over your head, or will it be more of a rainbow? So rainbows are the dream clients. Storm clouds are the clients that are probably not a right fit. So just do that double check if you're not quite sure. Because often we have these intuitive feelings when we're talking to people and we just don't listen to them. And I can't tell you how many times I have continued on with a client many years ago and worked with them and kept on going. And it just wasn't a great fit. And it just ended up being kind of miserable, to be honest. And that is something where I really learned how important it was to get that out of your life and move on, which kind of leads us into the seventh step here, which is to build a referral list. Now, I know that this might sound a little cuckoo, but here's the thing. If someone is not a fit for you, they actually could be a better fit for someone else. So when we talk about building a referral list, you have to remember the world is filled with people with all sorts of differences out there. Referring someone out still allows you to help that person without compromising your boundaries, because sometimes there are others that will be a better fit who would consider your not a fit client a dream client for them. But I also want to remind you here that you're not responsible for finding anyone that right ideal person to work with if you're not that right ideal person. So don't take on that responsibility at all. And the reason why they are not fit for you might guide this option here a little bit too. The one thing I will say here is please do not pass crappy people on to others without warning the other party. And that is something that I've actually done in time. I have referred several not a fit for me people out to other people many times over the years. I've spoken to colleagues. I will be very clear with them. I'm going to refer you somebody. I explain why I'm saying no, and I give them the honest picture so they can decide if they want to run for the hills. But honestly, sometimes your run for the hills clients are, in fact, the dream clients of other people. So having a referral list could actually help you out a lot in this situation here. And the eighth one is I really want you to absolutely remember that mantra that I said earlier. It fits in so many situations here. No. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone a detailed explanation. You are the boss. You are the CEO. You need to trust yourself and listen to your spidey sense. And remember, you are not here to help everyone. Back in 2011, I think it was, I made a new client rule that I did not want to work with any more mid-size and large organizations as clients. I had a couple and they were not a good fit for me. I was working with this one company and they had revenues of about 50 million. I was helping them out with social media at the time. And it was great money, don't get me wrong, but it was a challenging and not very happy experience. They wanted to meet every week to go over their plans, and they were never prepared for our meeting. They missed the meetings half the time. They screwed up my schedule, barely got me the info that I was needing to try and plan things. It just became a real waste of time for me and a big frustration. I was getting some good money, but that money was not worth it because they drained me. Whenever I had to work on their stuff, it took my mood down. It made me feel really burdened and pressured, and it just wasn't happy work. And I started in business to be happy about the kind of work I do and the people I work with. So we did have a conversation, and I did let them know that I was terminating their contract in 30 days. I stuck to it. And it was funny because I remember being so excited. I walked out of my office and I was like, that's it. No more clients, no more big business clients. And I was all excited about this. And I called it, I'm declaring a moratorium. And my husband, Marco, was like, you can't do that. They pay you really well. And I'm like, yep, no way. I said, no money is worth the feelings that it was bringing me when I was working with them. It's my business. I call the shots. And that was the shot that day. And that's something you have to remember, that you can say no to people and you don't have to explain the reasons why. It's always nice. At least give them something, but try not to get into that defense mode when you're doing it. You're here, you've got your business, you've got your practice. You want to do great work with the right people, and that's the best kind of practice to have. Saying no isn't rejecting people. It's clarity, really, when you think about it. Saying no is leadership. It's acting like a CEO. And it's one of the best ways that you're actually going to make room for the people you truly want to serve and work with. So those are the 8 steps that I want you to remember that will help you attract more of your dream clients by saying no when the moment is right to say no. You define your right fit clients. You name your deal breakers and know what they are. Add some pre-screening questions to your intake process if you need to. If you're not so sure about the yes, then pause before you say yes and script your no. Always make sure you're checking in with your values if you're not quite sure what's going on and how you feel about this. And think about, are you going to get a storm cloud or a rainbow here? Build a referral list for people that might love working with those not so fit clients for you. And then remember, always, no is no. No is a complete sentence. And that's all you have to tell somebody sometimes. So, what is your action step from today's lesson? I want you to think about your practice and your clients and ask yourself, have you been saying yes when no was a better path? Should you have passed on some of those clients? Do you need to let some of them go now? And think about what you can do moving forward to ensure that you're opening up space for more of those dream clients and less of the drain clients, the clients who are not a good fit. So review those 8 steps and really review them, especially if you've identified that you may have a couple people that you're already working with who are more of a drain client than a dream client. When you put these 8 steps into practice, you may just find yourself not only working with more dream clients, but you're building that dream practice that you started out with looking to do in the first place. Now, I also promised you the words that I used, a script. So I am going to share that with you, the script that I used in that situation that I was talking about today and in the episode last week. So let's get to those. And just so you know, I will post them on the show notes page for this episode. So there will be a link to that wherever you're listening in, or you can go to marketingyourprivatepractice.com/144. And the link will be in the show notes for you to click as well. Keep in mind, as I tell you this script of what I had said, here's the situation that happened. I had just sent this person an email inviting them to have a consult with me to see if we were a fit. Then I got this other email in. So this response that I did literally went out about 5 minutes after my other one inviting them to a consult, because mine went out, theirs came in, and then immediately I sent another one back out there. And my response was absolutely focused on those 4 words. What's with this shit? There was no niceties with that question. It was a very straightforward, them trying to figure out what's the deal with me having my pronouns in my email signature. And if I do that, basically, I'm not sure you're the right person and try to change my mind. Well, I'm not interested in changing your mind in a case like that, because you've let me know very clear where you stand. And I don't work with folks that may have that type of stance in life. So here is the script that I sent back to this person. Hello again, I said their name. That is where I stand on life and how I welcome, respect, and treat people. Your email makes it very clear we would never be a fit to do any work together. So if you've not already unsubscribed from my email system, I will save you some time and do that for you. If you want an answer to what's with this shit, I recommend reading this blog below on how this simple act of putting your pronouns in your email signature can mean the world to others. And then I put a link in there to a Medium article that I often refer people to when I might need to share some information with them on pronouns. Then I said, thank you for your emails. And since this is the last email communication between us, good luck with your future endeavors. And then my signature was there with my pronouns nicely beside my name. And that was it. So in this case, I did not just say no. I politely stated where I stand and that we were done communicating and I was unsubscribing them from my email system, and that was it. Partly, it was to ensure that they would not reach out again, as I would not be putting any more energy into talking to them and replying back to them. But that was literally it. I did not say anything more. I did not get into anything else. It was very simply, we're clearly not a fit. I'm unsubscribing you. Thanks for your emails. Last one we're going to have. Good luck in your future. And that was it. And to be honest, they actually did reply back and say it was a very polite email and they thanked me for it. And they also confirmed that they would never email me again either. So it was for me, it was a great way to say no. And the answers that I got back let me know that my no response was also appreciated, if you can call it that. The article I mentioned is one that's written by someone named Max Mazur, and they are a gender inclusion strategist who go by the pronouns they, them. So I will put a link to that article if you're interested in reading it. It's a great one to try and explain to people why cisgender, people like myself, using pronouns can help others. And that's big for me. And that's why this was such a hard no for me and a not a fit. Because building your business or your practice with more dream clients is really all about knowing what kind of people you want to work with and knowing that if someone is not a fit, you can say no thanks or sorry, we're not a good fit. Or maybe you borrow my Canadiana term that we use all the time. Yeah, no, and that's it. Or sometimes it just might be no. And that is very empowering to do. That simple no could really lead to a lot more yeses. And that's what I find often happens in life. So I will put some links in the show notes here to share that blog. You'll also see right in there the exact copy from the email. So if you ever need to borrow that, you can copy and paste it and use it as your own. And that's it. That's my message for you today. A little follow-up on saying no to clients being one of the best ways that you can bring in more of your dream clients and use these 8 steps to attract those dream clients more often because you're saying no to the clients that are really not a right fit for you. I hope this has been helpful. I know it's been a little bit of a different type of episode on marketing and growing a business or a practice. I hope it helps you though, because I will tell you one of the best ways that you can make room for those really dream clients that you want to work with is to ensure you're not working with the ones that are not a good fit for you. This is Kathy Colaiacovo signing off, and I'm going to leave you with this today. To thrive in practice means working with clients who are truly a fit for you and you for them. Don't compromise who you are or what you stand for just to make a sale. Because the right client will always be worth 10 times more than 10 of the wrong ones. I'll see you next time. You can find all of our show notes and resources mentioned at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at pepperitmarketing and say hi. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, and make sure to rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes.